Well, Happy New Year, St. Louis Cardinals fans. To ring in 2025, we wanted to make some predictions about the Cardinals going into the 2025 season, throughout the 2025 season, and potentially even the offseason to follow. What do we think is going to happen with this weird reset year where there are so many different outcomes at play? Sandy and I are going to react to our predictions as well as Andrew's predictions on this episode of Dealing the Cards. We're recording today on New Year's Day, so if you're watching live or watching on New Year's Day, Happy New Year. Otherwise, welcome to the first episode of Dealing the Cards in 2025. St. Louis Cardinals podcast hosted by myself, Josh, Sandy, and Andrew, who's not with us today, is traveling. But we wanted to go live today as New Year. You know, it's always a fun time for predictions, resolutions. Maybe we could have done resolutions to the Cardinals this year because there's plenty that could have been done. But I'm really excited about our predictions today, Sandy, because I think as I'm looking through all of ours, there's a mix of optimistic, neutral, pessimistic, kind of off the wall. Like there's a lot of stuff in there. So
if you want the pessimism, Andrew's not here, but you'll see his predictions at some point. They're pessimistic as usual.
I think our Andrew and then you and me represent like this continuum that like if you watch a video, there's gonna be some people who rip you and me because we're too optimistic or like say nice things and they're like Holt mows water, and then you have people who rip Andrew and they're like, does he even like the Cardinals? He's so rude.
I wonder the same thing myself.
Like, I do too, but no, Andrew keeps it real. I appreciate that because there's some times where I've shook my head at it, and then later it's like, oh, Andrew's actually kind of right. So, which I appreciate our podcast because I think we give a variety of views and we're not just groupthink here.
Absolutely.
It makes for a good conversation. So I wrote about this today in Redbird Rant, so people check out my 10. But then I'm gonna take 3 of those from this. Sandy, you've got 3. And we'll react to Andrew's 3 as well, which again I think are pretty interesting. Sandy, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first with the predictions here?
I can go first, and I also think we should at the end of this. I'm thinking of a New Year's resolution for the Cardinals. It'd be funny if we of those. So
let's do it. Yeah.
When you said that, I was thinking maybe we'll have to do one of those too.
Okay, but, we'll finish one off. And also, if you're watching live, like feel free to throw in some predictions, some resolutions, all that kind of stuff too. And also, Neilio, thank you so much for the $10 donation. Happy New Year to you as well. Really appreciate that. Which we don't talk about this often. But you can be Neely is a member of the channel. You could do that by going to the YouTube channel on the YouTube page. Become a member. We have a private Discord where we talk Cardinal baseball, and it's just a way to support the podcast. Really appreciate that. So, Sandy, how about you lead off with a prediction for the Cardinals in 2025?
Yeah, let's just get right to it. Prediction number 1 for me: the Cardinals will again finish with a top 10 bullpen unit, even after trading Ryan Helsley. So, kind of 2 things baked in here. So I do think they're going to trade Helsley. I think they'd be stupid not to. Although we've talked about why they may not, but I think he'll get traded. But even if they do trade him, I believe they still have a good bullpen unit. I like the way they built the bullpen last year. The same personnel seem to be in charge of building it again this year. And I just think there's a lot to like about this unit. I was talking to Kareem the other day on Birds on the Farm. Go check out that episode that just came out. And we were talking about some guys in the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft the Cardinals acquired with some interesting pitch specs. We know there's a lot of like carryovers on the roster to like as well. A couple of pitchers coming up who the Cardinals may try out in relief roles. You could see Tink Hence, hopefully not Quinn Matthews, but you could see him in a relief role at some point for this team. There's just a lot to like. There's a lot of depth. You're going to have holdovers, including Jojo Romero, Ryan Fernandez, Kyle Leahy, John King. Okay. Like some guys that obviously I'm excited about. Put together a great season last year. Yeah. It may be a closer by committee, but something else, like a trend the Cardinals have had over the last decade. Basically every year an elite closer has emerged on this team. I expect that to continue. Even if Helsley's gone, I believe someone will catch fire. You can look at years where it seems like they don't have an established closer entering the year, and then Alex Reyes makes the all-star team. Or, 38-year-old Bud Norris is viable, right? Like the Cardinals have figured this out before, and I really do think they'll continue to do so. So I think they're going to have a top 10 bullpen unit.
I like it. That's a really interesting prediction. I'll move. This wasn't my, it doesn't matter the order of predictions, but I'll do my response. All right, prediction similar, and then we can kind of talk about both of them. I'm predicting they don't trade Ryan Helsley. That they hold on to him through the year, and that because I think at this point I'd be shocked if they trade him in the offseason. It just doesn't feel like that's what they're planning on doing. And then if they're holding on him into the season, and if they're in somewhat competition, I just don't know if they're going to do the quote unquote right thing and trade him away at the deadline. Even though, again, I think that's what makes the most sense and what they should potentially be doing here, especially if the offers are there. But I think they'll be in enough competition that they'll want to hold on to Helsley. And so I think they will. I think Ryan Helsley will be a Cardinal for the rest of 2025. This is my prediction. I'm not going to say if they should do this, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do it. But I am going to predict that they hold on to Ryan Helsley. And then the offseason, they hit him with a qualifying offer. That's assuming he doesn't get hurt and assuming he plays to the ability we know he can. And the Cardinals get a draft pick in return. Again, I think the potential package you could get for a good Ryan Helsley at the deadline is probably better than the value of one draft pick. But I will remind people, which is really interesting, is that Chaim Bloom has just killed drafts. You look at how Boston's farm system looks right now, and he hits in those middle rounds really well. That's where they got like a Christian Campbell. That's where they got, gosh, I'm blanking. Like I think Roman Anthony went later. Pitching, like I trust Chaim Bloom with the draft, and so getting him more ammunition in that makes a lot of sense. Again, it's not why they should do this, but it's like a silver lining. And then obviously Randy Flores too. I trust with drafts. It'll be interesting. I'm not going to include this prediction, but I don't know who from the Cardinals front office that's a part of Mo's regime will stay. Most of their contracts apparently are up after this year. So I don't know if Bloom will retain Randy Flores, Moises Rodriguez. It doesn't seem like Michael Gersh will be around beyond this. I think some of those guys will stay, but also they could look elsewhere. They might want to look for promotions or look for other opportunities in new organizations. So there could be some more shakeups coming outside of what's already happened. But yeah, I'll predict to hold on to Helsley. And oh, do we have a birds on the farm thing out there for a while?
Yeah, I got it.
I'm seeing the messages about that. Hey, it's just that's a shameless plug and advertising for Birds on the Farm. You guys had a good episode this past week, so go check that out. But
I think I'm kind of with you though. Like I think I am worried they won't trade Helsley. I'd like to see them do it. I think the value you'd bring back is huge. I love that you're baking in that the Cardinals are going to be competitive next year. That's great.
Competitive is like a loose-ish term because, like,
yeah, sure.
How many teams last year?
If they're in it, right? Helsley stays.
Yeah.
And if you think Helsley's going to stay, that means they're in it.
Yeah, true. So I mean, I guess I don't want people to think I'm saying they're going to be like winning the division or anything, but like I think they'll be in a place where it's like, I mean, mathematically and like narrative wise, they could say, yeah, we can make the playoffs. We're probably a couple of games back of the wild card or whatever. Like they only finished 6 games back of the wild card this year,
and that was with a horrible August.
Yeah, so I really think
September too.
Yeah, and I actually really like your prediction about it being a top 10 bullpen. I'm going to say it probably regresses to a little bit closer to average. But I think, like you said, if they keep Helsley, you have all these other arms. Like I know you lost Kittredge. You got a really great season out of Fernandez and JoJo's. Like, do those repeat? But I also think like you could see Gordon Graceffo emerge in that. Yep. Like you brought up, like whether it's some of those Rule 5 guys, whether some of the reliever profiles or some of the starters. Like if McGreevy's not starting, maybe he's a valuable reliever for you. Tin Cans. Again, I'm not advocating for these things, but
at some point this year.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? And maybe like a Cooper Jerpy makes an appearance up there this year where he's an advanced college arm. And I know he struggled with injuries and such, but there's just a lot of
still around. He could be a solid reliever. He could be a really solid reliever for you.
So I think there's some regression coming with the bullpen potentially just because it was so darn good, especially if they lose Helsley. But I'm going to predict. I think it'll even with Helsley be slightly worse than it was last year at least, but we'll see on that. I do want to get to one of Andrew's predictions because I think it's really all three of them are interesting, but. And here's Andrew's first prediction. He said Oli will have a good year, but get the Shildt treatment at the end of the year anyway. Ooh. So we don't have a lot of context to that. And Sandy, what was your initial reaction when you read that?
Well, I mean, I feel like we've talked about this a lot, and we all kind of think Oli's going to be gone next year.
I'm like 50-50.
Okay. I think Oli's going to be gone next year. I think no matter what, it's just like it'd be probably a really great way for Chaim to like build trust among a lot of fans if he just walked in, see ya, Oli, like kind of that. I don't know. I also just think that there's a chance he wants to run things his way, and maybe he's got his guy that's handpicked that can be the manager. Yeah. I could absolutely see him hiring someone from Boston or bringing on someone from Tampa Bay that he's interested in. I feel like the odds he wants to bring someone in.
Pujols.
That's the other thing. The Cardinals have 2 legends, 2 future Hall of Famers, and I mean, probably both getting their numbers retired in St. Louis. Like, both of these guys have expressed a desire to manage in St. Louis next year. And it's not going to be this coming year, but if either of them are still around, they're also obvious candidates to come in too. There's just so many other options that aren't Oli. And Oli is like, unfortunately, I like Oli. I'm happy to sing his praises and talk about why he's a good manager. But there are just so many like other people it could be. And he's so unpopular with so much of the fan base, unfortunately. Andrew says that Giants fans already hate Buster Posey. That's probably true. And that's why I'm really cautious to bring back Yachty, especially because you don't want to see Cardinals fans turn on a guy that they love for 15 years. Pujols is the same way, although I think the floor is lower with Yachty as a manager than it is with Albert.
Agreed. Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think there are so many other guys it could be. And I think Heim probably wants to change direction. And also, if the team is bad again, like a lot of managers don't survive a team being bad 3 years in a row. I don't know if the Cardinals were bad last year. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean on that. Yeah, I think there's definitely a chance Ollie's gone. But part of it does, like, if you're of the if someone's of the opinion the team looks pretty good next year, is competitive, not say makes the playoffs, but like is a close to above 500 team or above 500 team. And most of it's probably going to be because the young bats and some of the young arms are developing. And then I think that's like ticks and points in the favor of Oli staying because he's a manager's proving that he can, in that scenario, he'd be a manager's proving he can cultivate young talent. It's something that's been talked about at length with Oli, is that for a long time, the Cardinals viewed him as a player development guy long-term. And also a lot of the issues that you think you're seeing, I'm not going to comment and say I know for a fact what is happening at the major league level or what isn't happening at the minor league levels development wise, but there's been a lot of good reporting out there of a lot of these guys that are up in St. Louis right now. Stubby Clapp, Oli Marmol, I was thinking Pop Warner. I guess he kind of fits into that. There's just a lot of guys who've been promoted through the ranks over the years who were a big part of why John Jay, Danny Descalso, Alan Craig, all these young players developed when they did over the years. Or like the guys past that, like a Tommy Edman in the minor leagues, and now they're at the major league level, and they didn't really do a great job of backfilling that and having great minor league coaching behind them. And then also, like, a lot of those guys had some of the last like connections to the old way of like the true Cardinal way of baseball and coaching in the system. And so some of that's been lost throughout the years. And it's like Oli could prove that he's got that at the major league level still. I think that's a way he could win himself in a Chaim Bloom's area. But I totally agree. I would not be shocked at all, even if Oli does well, that Bloom has a guy picked out or he wants to go in a different direction. And some of that might even weigh like, hey, to win the goodwill of fans, I could go get a guy I like and get rid of a guy they don't like. I don't think that will drive the decision, but I think it could be.
But it could be a factor in it for sure.
Yeah. We've got more predictions that we'll go down to throughout the episode, but I do want to thank a couple of our sponsors real quick. First, 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet, open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 on Saturdays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars around the league. Awesome sponsor of the podcast. They're actually a presenting sponsor of the podcast. We're powered by 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. We did our charity live stream there recently. I snagged some cards there while I was there. I showed some different ones. So I'll just pull out some. Heston Kierstad's kind of fun. We opened a box together, which was really fun while we were there. Oh, Lance Lynn, everyone's favorite Cardinal from last year. But yeah, go check out 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles for all of your sports memorabilia and sports cards needs. They're awesome. Please go check them out. And then we also want to thank one of our new partners, Underdog Sports. They're our favorite place to play fantasy games. Sandy's been killing it over there lately. You got to check out their pick'em. It's so easy to play. All you do is pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players or players from around any of the professional sports or collegiate sports, and you choose whether they go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with your promo CARDS to claim your first free pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. Remember to use the promo code CARDS to go there, and you can check out a link in our description to check out the Underdog app from there. So let's get into another prediction. Sandy, what's a prediction that you have, a second prediction for the Cardinals in 2025?
Yes, this is kind of like yours. I think the Cardinals are going to hold on to Nolan Arenado at least through the offseason. And he will anchor what's, I think, going to be a strong defense. 2 years ago, the Cardinals defense fell apart. It was one of many terrible things that happened in the season of 2023 that we choose not to remember most of the time. Last year, the defense was much improved. It was much better. It was back towards at least being like average. It wasn't what it was in the early 2020s or late 2010s when the Cardinals were a vacuum in the infield. I know some caster called them that at some point. Very exciting. But I think they'll hold on to Arenado, and he'll be one of 3 or 4 Gold Glove finalists. So I think the defense is going to be good. It's going to be good all around. I like Mason Wynn to be a finalist at that position at shortstop. I'm not sure he'll win it. There's still a strong group. Dansby Swanson, still a great defender, although super overrated on a terrible contract. But I like that. I like maybe getting a finalist in the outfield. I feel like if Lars Nootbaar could get a whole healthy season in a corner spot, easily could win a Gold Glove there. Very talented, very great defender. So, yeah, I think there's plenty of chances. Victor Scott in center field could contend for a Gold Glove. So I think it'll be a very strong defense, and I think Arenado will be a big part of it.
I like that. That's a fun one. Can I give you a off-the-wall potential Gold Glove contender?
Sure.
Wilson Contreras at first base.
Yeah.
I'm so all in on
catcher. Tell me he can't learn first.
I think he's going to be – I don't think he's actually a Gold Glove finalist, but I think he's going to be better at first base than the I don't know, I shouldn't say the casual. Then I think a lot of people are giving him credit for right now. He's got the athleticism for it. I think it'll be really interesting. But, yeah, I like that prediction. I definitely see a scenario where Nolan's here in spring training. I still think he's going to be traded. I think people are like, it's almost like when something doesn't happen and you're just kind of waiting that everyone freaks out. Like, it's like when I look at Cubs Twitter this offseason and like for like 3 straight weeks, they're like, get rid of Jed Hoyer. This has been the worst, the front office of all time. He's never going to do anything. And then they trade for Kyle Tucker and they're in on a bunch of people and they're doing stuff. And now they're all like, Jed Hoyer's the best ever. Give him a 10-year extension. It's like, it's a long off season. And when Nolan declined the trade to Houston, it basically became pretty apparent that this was going to take through the new year. And then now it's the new year and people are like, it hasn't happened yet, so it's not going to happen. I'm like, well, we've kind of known for weeks now it wasn't going to happen till at least now. And Bregman hasn't signed yet. So like, cool, the Yankees say they are interested, and cool, the Red Sox like aren't doing a lot right now. But like, we'll see what happens after a little bit here. I kind of think he's going to be available. Interesting question from Kareem that we can address and keep going is, if they keep Nato, does that open the door for Newt playing a lot of center field? I think it would. If you're going to try and fit in Gorm and Burleson into your lineup,
probably
that makes a lot of sense. And Donovan played a great left field last year. It's not like Nootbaar's a good defensive center field or really like a elite defensive center field or anything, but he could play it. And it helps the offense. Yeah, like true.
If Scott has a really, really great spring training, I wouldn't be the one to say, hey, you don't get to play, on opening day. So I don't know. It depends how ready he looks, how ready to contribute at a high level he looks.
Yeah, I'm pretty okay with Victor Scott being in AAA.
I think so too.
To start the year and being patient with him. I'm fine with Michael Ciani playing center field to start the year unless Victor's the guy. But if they do have Renato, I think in that scenario, I would definitely be like, play Newton center and have Ciani play the rest of it. And then you can rotate guys around and have Victor play every day in AAA and just continue to get seasoned offensively. But yeah, it's a really good point, Kareem. So we'll see what have to keep monitoring that as we go. Here's my second prediction. Your boy, and I think pseudo my boy, but you were definitely the Sonny Gray enthusiast of everyone. Sonny Gray is going to compete for a Cy Young this year.
Love it.
I think he's going to be one of the best. Now, I'm not predicting he's going to be top 3 or anything like that, but I think he's going to get
7, like
5, 7. He's going to get votes, and it's like an all-star year. He's going to be awesome. I think so. Here, the misnomer of Sonny Gray last year is that he's bad. It's not true.
He was not bad.
He was not bad. Now, was it disappointing? Yeah, it was. But you look under the hood and you look at the advanced metrics on Sonny Gray, and there's a lot of things that are like, okay, this dude was actually he has everything in his tool bag to be a great pitcher next year. Let me just read out some stuff for you. He was 8th in FIP last year in all baseball, 3.12. 2nd in expected FIP, 2.82. 3rd in Sierra, 3.03. Tied for 12th in all baseball and WHIP, 1.09. He had the 3rd highest strikeout percentage in the league, 30.3%. 14th lowest, I guess, walk percentage at 5.8, and then his strikeout to walk percentage was 3rd in all baseball. Like, Sonny Gray had a lot of really good stuff looking at him last year. Now, here are the two clear issues. The home run ball, which to an extent regressed more toward the mean for him because he had an elite home run prevention rate 2 years ago, which wasn't sustainable. But then it was really bad last year, which I also don't think is sustainable. And then the other thing, this is the craziest one, is his home road splits. When he was at Busch Stadium last year, he had a 2.79 ERA, which is 12th best home ERA in all baseball among qualified pitchers. On the flip side, Gray had a 5.20 ERA on the road, which was 88th out of 94 pitchers who qualified. Now, on the surface, it's like, okay, he struggles on the road, makes sense. Actually, in Sonny Gray's career, he's been a better road pitcher than he's been a home pitcher. He's a 3.39
sandbox ballparks like Great America.
Exactly. He has a 3.39 career ERA on the road compared to a 3.61 ERA at home. Again, some of that's the ballparks he's pitched in at home over the years, but he's proven that he can go on the road and be a stud before. So I'm not necessarily saying he's going to have a sub 3 ERA on the road this year, but I don't think it's going to be mid fives either. And we also had some weird games where he gave up like 4 home runs to the Braves in one game. It's like that stuff inflates your stats a little bit. Again, I'm not going to defend the year last year, but I think Sonny Gray is going to be really good next year. I think he's going to compete for a Cy Young. And we'll see if what that does. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be trading him. I don't think he wants to be traded. But I do think Sonny Gray is going to be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball next year, and competing for a Cy Young. Again, I'm not predicting a top 3 finish, but I think like down ballot votes of like a 5-6 place finish is totally in the realm of possibilities for Sonny Gray next year.
I mean, yeah, let's just talk about the fact that he had the lowest walk rate of his entire career last year, 2.1. And it wasn't just lowest by a little bit. It's lowest by 0.6 per 9, okay? Like, that's a huge decrease. He walks less guys than he's ever walked before. Highest strikeout rate of a non-2020 season. So in 2020, he had an 11.6 per 9. But last year, 11.0 per 9, significantly higher than his year a couple years ago, 2023, where he finished second AL Cy Young. Where he was 9.0. So that's a massive increase, okay? Strikeout to walk ratio, easily the highest of his career, 5.21 compared to 3.35 in his second best year. Like, obviously, there was a lot of great stuff going on with him last year. I love that you mentioned the expected FIP. Like, that's a great number to base future success on, because Sonny Gray did the right things and he had a lot of bad luck. When you think about the fact that moving to Busch Stadium led to his home run rate almost tripling, absurd. And if you look at his fly ball to home run rate, completely unsustainable. It just doesn't make any sense that he was able to do that. I really do think if he cuts down on the long balls, you're absolutely right. Sonny Gray could be a finalist for the Cy Young. There's no reason to suggest that he's not one of the best 10 pitchers in the National League.
Yeah, I also think, or the last thing I'll add to this so we can move on is that streamers projections have come out. I think they have him as a top 10 pitcher in all baseball next year, according to F4. I've seen some other different like projection systems that people have come out, and Sonny Gray's been finished. He has a top 10 pitcher in FIP, ERA, stuff like that. K percentage in their projections. And a lot of them acknowledge, and they say, like, if you see Sonny Gray and you're like, what's the deal with that? They're like, his expected numbers last year were really good. And so, like, it makes sense that he's also expected to be good next year. Again, he is turning 35, but we've seen plenty of starters in their mid to late 30s be awesome. So is that concerning? Sure, but I'm not going to rule it out. I'm not going to say, oh, he's old, so he's not going to be good. It could happen, but I'm thanking him being good. And then also, this is his second year in St. Louis, so he should be more comfortable now too. He's pitching, I guess he's not pitching Wilson Contreras anymore, but he should be more comfortable with Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pages. I like Sonny Gray to have an awesome year next year. All right, and then let's move on to an Andrew prediction here. I'm gonna save his last one for last, or his second one for last, because I think that'd be a good one to talk through at the end. But he predicts from Andrew that Eric Fedde won't be traded this offseason. He'll regress big time during the year, and the Cardinals will get a fringe top 25 prospect at the deadline.
Andrew right there.
He just went for it right there.
It's such an Andrew prediction.
Yeah. I agree with, I don't think he's going to be as good next year as he was last year, just because he was awesome. I mean, he was really good. I think he's like a number 3 starter in the league, and I think he'll still be like that, but it'll look like his numbers were better than a number 3 starter. I think they'll look more like a number 3 starter this year. Maybe they'll trade him for the deadline. I don't know. I kind of don't think if they're getting a fringe top 25, I don't think they'd move him. But yeah, I do think he'll regress some next year. What about you?
I mean, I think he regresses because he was so great this year. I don't know if I'm going with like he'll regress big time, and the Cardinals.
Yeah, I don't know what that
for him. Like that's what the Cardinals got for freaking Paul DeYoung. I think it's going to be more valuable than Paul DeYoung. I think when the Cardinals traded, like, let's think about what the Cardinals got for Montgomery. They got a lot back for Jordan Montgomery, and Jordan Montgomery, in theory, was less valuable at that deadline than Fetty was at last year's deadline. I maybe similar, comparable, pretty comparable in terms of the actual value. Like, Fetty was awesome last year. And also Fetty's track record, he doesn't really have one. You know, he was bad 5 years ago or whatever, but he's clearly a different pitcher now that he's come back. And I feel like I've seen a lot of people saying that the success is sustainable. People think that these are real changes that he's made to his mechanics and his arsenal, and they're yielding good results. Obviously, he worked on himself, figured something out, and was able to pitch much better last year. So I'm not sure I'm on like oh my gosh, he's going to be terrible. And he's being paid so little. Montgomery was being paid a lot more, so his prorated salary was going to be higher. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to be awful. I actually think Fetty, even if he's not great, you're going to be able to trade him for much more than a fringe top 25 prospect. So.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I guess, I agree. I'm expecting regression from Eric Fetty, but not that bad. And if they do trade him, I don't think it'd be that bad. But hey, maybe Andrew.
How bad would you have to be to get a top, like maybe a top 25 prospect in someone's system?
Yeah,
that would have to be Paul DeYoung in terms of value. Like Miles.
Yeah. Well, also too, like John Lester got Lane Thomas, and I think Lane Thomas was probably more valuable than the outside the top 25 prospect at that really point. Bad. So, but hey, you never know, right? Like none of us would have saw 2023 coming. So, got to keep in the range of outcomes. What's your third prediction? And then we'll round out each of our thirds and then do a New Year's resolution.
Pulling it up right here. My third.
I can read it for you if you need. Oh, you got it?
Herrera will enjoy a major breakout and cement himself as the everyday catcher. So when I say everyday catcher, Cardinals fans think about everyday catcher and they think about Yadier Molina catching 150 to 155 games a year. Nobody does that anymore. When I say everyday catcher, I mean he'll catch 120, 125 games, hopefully. But I really do think Herrera is clearly the better option between him and Pages. I don't know why there's a discourse around that. Yeah, Pages had a couple of clutch moments. Pages does play really great defense, and he's a great defensive substitute. He's definitely a better defender than Herrera. But it's not like Pages controlled the running game that well either. I know it was a major problem for Herrera. I do believe he's working on it, and I think it'll get better. He's controlled the running game throughout his minor league career. But his bat is just so much better than Pages. I mean, it's truly night and day. It might be a 60 WRC difference. Like it is half a player at this point.
Do you want to know what it is?
Yeah, I'd love to.
It is it's almost a 50 WRC plus difference. Yeah. It was Ivan Herrera was 127 last year to Pedro Pages is 83. So you have almost 30% above league average bat in Hot Herrera and basically below 20% league average bat in Pages.
It's a massive difference. It's night and day. And if you have a guy like Herrera on your roster, you need to get his bat in the lineup whenever possible. And I don't think there's going to be a ton of room for him to DH next year, especially if Arenado sticks around, because that could push a guy like Burleson or Sajazi into a DH role where they're doing that more often. Contreras will DH some too. I just really want to see Herrera in the lineup whenever possible. I think he'll DH sometimes, but I do think he needs to be the everyday catcher because winning teams do not run guys like Pedro Pages out as part of their lineup. I'm sorry. It's just the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have or at least if you have an elite lineup, you can afford to have the Pages. Because like what Pages put up last year is kind of like you would have wanted a little bit more from Mason Wynn, but people were like, hey, if Mason Wynn's like a 90 WRC plus guy, slightly below league average and plays great defense, you'll take it. There's definitely a lot of fair debate about how good Pages is behind the plate. It seems like pitchers like when he calls their games. I do think, if I'm not mistaken, I looked at this before, he does have like a full run better ERA when he's behind the plate versus Wilson Contreras and Ivan Herrera. That kind of stuff is like, it's notable, but I want to like put all my eggs in that basket because it's like, well,
he had like a crazy high win percentage. It was like at one point he had the highest win percentage among all qualified catchers. So I got why the Cardinals are running him out there because it's like if you win, no matter how it looks, you're winning. So the Cardinals won when Lance Lynn pitched last year. So he was probably good in some way that we're not finding.
Yeah.
They won when Page's caught, but it feels unsustainable. The offense is so bad, and it's better. It's held up by like a couple of hot stretches, kind of like Nolan Gorman's production at times, because there were extended periods where Page was a black hole offensively.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think if Page, the only reason I think you start Page every day is if for some reason he just clearly is like has a better feel of the pitching staff and the offense around him can perform at the point where you don't need his bat. To your point, but like I'm saying all that as like here's like the other side of it, but like I totally agree Ivan Herrera should be the starting catcher every day next year. And then if not, then honestly, I think you should be playing him over Alec Burleson and DH a lot of days. And I like Burleson, but like we're talking about a guy who was on pace for a 5.3 F4 and 250 and 658 plate appearances last year. That is like that's clearly an all-star player, borderline amazing. Like yeah, it's amazing from a player like Ivan Herrera there, and he hasn't really gotten the runway he deserves. Again, I think he should be the starting catcher, which to your point is like 110, 120 games next year, and Pages handles the rest of it, especially if you're going to be starting Siani in center field. That's already kind of your spot where you're like, hey, we're sacrificing offense here. So I do think you need to kind of roll with the punches here and make sure you have Ivan Herrera in your lineup. So yeah, I love that prediction. I think Ivan Herrera is gonna be awesome next year. In all honesty, he might be the player outside of like Newbar and Donovan are part of the young core, but they're a little more established in my opinion than the other ones. Ivan Herrera might be the one that's like the least established, like Walker, Gorman, offensively more than Wynn for sure. I have more trust in Ivan Herrera than Mason Wynn, and I like Wynn, but he was league average last year. But anyways, outside of Wynn, Newbar, Donovan, Herrera might be the one I have the most confidence in that's going to be good. Like Walker, I'm scared that he could be bad, and Gorman, I'm fearful like that he could just be bad. And Herrera, I think is just awesome, and he should be playing.
Herrera has some power in his bat too. Like he's got some high end exit velocities too.
Yeah, like and he's a guy who hits for like really good average in today's game, which doesn't happen. Yeah. So that's, anyways, really like Ivan Herrera.
Yeah. Well, I think it's got to be him. I really hope it is. And I'll be very frustrated if Herrera, again, is subjected to limited playing time or for some BS reason spends time in AAA this year.
Yep, we'll have to see. That's for sure. Okay, my third and final prediction, then we'll get to Andrew's and we'll give a New Year's resolution or so for the Cardinals. Real quick, some things in the chat that I think are really interesting. Kareem set an over-under for Michael Siani at 100 starts in center field next year. I'll hit the under because I think there's a chance Newt gets some chances out there, and Scott gets chances out there, and so that leaves just like 60 or so plus game. I don't know, 100's a good number actually. I could see being over. And then there's some good talk about how if the Cardinals do have to hold on to Arenado, you could maybe get more for him at the deadline. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. But my third prediction is that Quinn Matthews is going to finish in the top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting this year. And I know it's an aggressive take. And I'm saying this as in like it's not my expectation as in like if Quinn Matthews isn't that good next year, I'm going to be disappointed. I am just like predicting that he's going to be awesome next year. Here's part of the thought process because there's some responses on Twitter today where they're like, why wouldn't he I think they would hold him to be on opening day 2026 and try to win rookie there next year. If they're genuinely trying to compete next year, you can't leave Quinn Matthews in AAA if he's ready. Again, if he's not ready, you don't need to force it. But if Quinn Matthews is pitching really well in Memphis and looks like a guy who can make a difference in your rotation, then you have to bring him up if you're serious about winning. And I also think there's probably for them, they're like, hey, we could have 2 starters that people want to come to the ballpark and watch in Sonny Gray, especially if he's having like a Cy Young type year. And Quinn Matthews is the young, exciting frontline, like number 2 type future starter for you. Like, I think there's a real scenario here where Quinn Matthews is playing a lot next year and pitches a lot. I don't know if I would bet against him making the opening day roster. But if he's really good out of camp and they think they're going to call him up anyways, they might just do it to be in the running for that draft pick. I don't think that part matters as much, but I'd be kind of shocked if he's not up by the end of June at the latest. And I think he's in the rotation and I think he's making a difference. And he doesn't have to be a stud right at the beginning. Even if he's giving you number 4 starter like quality, Like that's a valuable thing from a young starter. But Quinn Matthews' meteoric rise is incredible. Like this guy was throwing in the low 80s from a slider last year, and it hits 90 now. He was a low 90s fastball guy. It's mid. It touches 90. It's 95 consistently. Touches 97 now. Quinn Matthews is the second pitcher. Brandon Pfaadt and him are the only pitchers in the last 13 years to have over 200 strikeouts at the minor league levels. Like he was really good, and he's a lefty who misses bats, doesn't walk a ton of people. I think he's gonna be really good. And so again, I'm not saying he's not Paul Skeens. He's not. I don't think he's a number one in his future. But is he like a really good number two? I think he could be. Doesn't mean he's gonna be that right away though. I think Quinn Matthews is there. Also, I think compared to like last year's was just like a historic rookie class in the National League. The fact that when like I wish you would have finished top three, but you have Churio, Muriel, and Skeens. Like Imanaga didn't even finish top three. That was a really tough class. I don't think it'll be that strong this year. What was that?
Wynn didn't even get votes. Like only four people in the National League got votes at all.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see. So I think he's a guy that if he's really good in camp, for as much as we want to see McGreevy, I think he can leapfrog McGreevy. Like because for whatever your ceiling is for McGreevy, it's not Quinn Matthews, and so they're going to prioritize Quinn Matthews and his development and being in the rotation over McGreevy. In my opinion, we'll see. So, anyways, it's an aggressive, a more bold prediction, but I wanted to make it. So I think Quinn Matthews can finish top three along with like Dylan Cruz and other guys who are up in the bigs next year. So, and then Andrew's third prediction is, and I think this will be a good barometer, just kind of how we feel like the Cardinals, like today, where we think the Cardinals will finish. He's predicting the Cardinals will fall within 5 games of the division lead, but miss the playoffs.
Man, I feel like if the Cardinals are within 5 games of the division lead, they'll have a shot at the playoffs. Like, I don't know how strong these other teams in the NL are going to be this year. That's so tough.
Well, I mean, you look at the National League East, Phillies, Braves, and Mets. You look at the National League West. Really well, Dodgers, I think they all will be because Mets were just the NLCS. Braves had a down year. Yeah, National League to be fun. You look at the National League West, it's the Dodgers, Padres, and then you've got the Diamondbacks. You just went and got Corbin Burns.
That's a weird move, by the way. I was confused by that. I thought they were cutting payroll. I'm salty.
Yeah, it is weird.
We cut payroll, we actually do it.
I think they just saw an opportunity where Burns like, hey, I'll stay home. I mean, he's from Arizona. He's like, I'll potentially stay home, and they made it work. And then again, in the National League Central, you've got the Brewers and the Cubs, and then let alone whatever the Reds are and Pirates are. I'm not as concerned about Pirates. Reds have a lot of variance to me. Within 5 games of the division is pretty aggressive prediction, I think. I would say I think the Cardinals will be in the race next year, but I think they're basically going to finish in a very similar spot as they did record-wise this past year. 80, 82, 83 win games, but it's going to feel different. Where that team clearly was overachieved because the offense was so bad, the bullpen was so good, and the rotation did just enough, and they kept winning 1-run games that they kind of like were like, I guess they're an 83 win team, but like they're Pythagorean, they outperformed it by 7 wins. I think they have a better offense next year, a more exciting rotation, a little bit worse of a bullpen, and it results in them basically being what they should be, which is an 82-ish, 81, 80 win team on the upside if they're playing well. And they missed the playoffs about the same, but it feel different. And going into the 2026 offseason, you're more excited about the future than you would have been this past year. But I do think there's a world where this team wins anywhere between 70 wins and 85 wins. I think there's a 15-game variance because of you got to figure out what this rotation is with the young guys, but specifically the young lineup. What happens with Nato? What happens with Helsley, Fetty? Like, there's a lot that could happen. But I like that prediction from Andrew. I think they'll be in the race, but they'll miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It just depends on how like the Brewers and Cubs are. I don't know. The Cubs could be really good with Kyle Tucker. Like, that's the thing. They could take a huge step forward. We have no idea what the Pirates are going to look like, especially if their young rotation is healthy.
Yeah, and the Cubs might get Roki. Yikes. So that's tough. Yeah.
That sucks.
Oh, boy.
Young guys are awesome. Like, maybe they do contend for the division. There's just a lot of moving parts now, and the division is getting tougher. It's not a great time to be the Cardinals right now.
Nope.
This is going to be the first time the NL Central has had like 3 good teams outside of St. Louis in a while.
Yeah. So okay, let's pivot at the end here. I like the idea of doing a New Year's resolution with the Cardinals. Do you have one baked already?
Yeah, my New Year's resolution is to hit with runners in scoring position more often. I'm sick of it.
Great one.
Last year was the worst. Okay,
I mean, it can't
not
be that
fun.
bad again.
Every time the Cardinals had anybody on base, they just forgot how to play. And the worst part about it was that it was always Goldie and Arenado at the plate, and it was just so bad. Goldschmidt with runners in scoring position, I think, was the worst thing I've ever seen. I genuinely had no fun watching him up there. Knew it was going to happen, and it still happened. And it's to maybe lift the ball once in a while. I mean, we couldn't even drive guys in with sac flies. That's the other problem. It was always weak ground balls and strikeouts. Okay. Bases loaded, nobody out. Oh, what's going to happen? Like, are we trying to put the bat on the ball? No, of course not. Like thinking about maybe taking a walk, forcing the pitcher into a hitter's count, maybe make him throw a strike. No, we're going to swing at the first one and roll it over to second base.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Oh man.
That's what it is.
It can't be as bad as it was last year. And the fact that, I mean, Goldie was a bottom 6 hitter in all baseball players in scoring position last year. So you're getting like the bump there. And honestly, like it was kind of surprising. They ended up finishing like WRC plus, I think like 19th in baseball. So it wasn't, I mean, they were bottom 3 for so long, but they've still finished bottom 6 in runs scored. And a big part of that's because they couldn't hit runners in scoring position. So like there's some positive regression there, I think, coming in the run score department, which can help from wins. But again, I don't think the win is made close games.
You should be better with runners on. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
You should be better. And the fact that the Cardinals weren't worse, they were so much worse. Like you should be better because balls that count as outs, okay, like sac flies, that's an out with nobody on base. A sac fly is not an out, though, in your average with runners in scoring position. It doesn't affect it, okay? You should be better with runners on. Your numbers should all look better. They should all take a bump.
We're also not talking about like, oh, they were bad last year, so like it's not like, oh, they were bad compared to the league norm last year. They were historically bad. They were one of the worst teams in baseball history. Like, I would be shocked if you repeat that performance another year. There's too many, like, I know people, like, even if you hate the Cardinals roster and you think they're garbage and you think the future is terrible, they are not the White Sox. They are not like some of these teams we've seen in recent years. They have more talent than that. They should not be that bad.
Runners in scoring position though last year. Like that's the sickening thing. They turned into the White Sox and then got worse when there were runners on.
Which you could argue like, oh, always okay. Well, they do have a new hitting coach. Again, different play. I mean, they won't have Nato, Goldie. Like there are some differences. So, my New Year's resolution, that's a great one for the but mine for the Cardinals is that they let the young arms pitch. Let McGreevy start. Let Quinn Matthews, if he's ready, start. Let Graceffo play, whether it's in the bullpen or the rotations. Let Sem, let's see what you have in these guys so that you know what kind of pitching depth you have moving forward. Again, if they're not ready, like I'm not saying call up Tink Hence right now. It's like if they're not ready, don't do it. But if Takeo Roby, if Cooper Jerpy, if Ian Bedell, like if any of these guys are showing something, I'd much rather see them than Miles Mikolas. I'm sorry, I know Mikolas is and sometimes can be helpful, but most of the time is not, and is not part of your future. These young arms are. And again, I'm not saying Ian Bedell is going to be a number 5 starter for you at any point, but you need to know if you have depth that you can rely on. You need to know if you have a guy for a 4 or 5 start stretch, you need some innings you can go to, because we've seen in 2021, 2020, like years like 2022, where they are like rolling out a AA pitcher, Johan Oviedo, who they're openly saying should not be here right now, but we have no other options. They're trading for J.A. Happ. Or Lade LeBlanc, John Lester. They have to go get Quintana and Montgomery to make sure the rotation works. Like they too often have to do this patchwork stuff. They have to go sign Steven Matz. They have to extend Miles Mikolas. Again, they don't have to do those things, but they felt like they had to. If you're not going to figure out what you have in them unless you let them play. And a lot of those guys have been in AAA for a little bit too. So it's like, again, if they're clearly not ready, I'm not saying that, but if they're prioritizing starts for Mikolas or
and Mikolas is not for this team. Like Mikolas is not on the team in 2026.
Nope. So let him pitch. And even if that means in the bullpen, again, I don't like when Quinn Matthews or Tink Hence. Tink Hence is different because of the durability thing. I could see a scenario where let's get some bullpen innings out of him this year. But I don't like in the past when they've pigeonholed some future starters into reliever roles at times and then kind of ruin things over them. But some of those guys like Graceffo, Bedell, Robersa, even McGreevy to an extent, if they're not, McGreevy, I think since he's your next man up, shouldn't be doing that. But big league innings are valuable. Okay, so I'd like to see them. So New Year's resolution: let the kids play in the rotation and bullpen too, not just the lineup. And I'll throw in your prediction from earlier. Let Ivan Herrera catch. Oh my gosh,
please!
He's too good not to. So
please let him catch.
We'd love to hear your New Year's. Oh, go ahead.
But he can't throw out base runners. Nobody's throwing out base runners right now anyway.
Yeah, let him. And Pajes really can't either. So, but Ivan Herrera's arm is really an issue. Like it's pretty bad. So.
It's bad.
But he's good in other areas. So we really appreciate the support as always. Like and subscribe helps the channel a ton. Go check out Underdog if you want to play some fantasy sports, all the college football playoff stuff going on right now. You got the NFL week 18 and the playoffs coming up. And baseball season is going to be here soon. College basketball, Sandy's really killing it over there with that. You can use our code CARDS to get a free first pick'em and also a first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We'd love for you guys to do that. Use our code cards there. You use the link in our description for that. Check out 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles for all your trading cards and sports memorabilia needs. Like and subscribe helps the channel a ton. We really appreciate all the support and all of you guys. We'll be back soon for another episode of D on the Cards. But until next time, we will see you guys later.